Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Russell Ladson, and as he mentioned, I am the CEO of a startup here in San Francisco called Drop. Oh gosh, this is not good. Now, at Drop, we like to always say our role is to completely reimagine the way people will interact with information in the future. You see, if you ask any of my team members or my friends, I have a very unhealthy obsession with information discovery on our computing devices. And to us at Drop, our computing devices are merely just tools that are meant to amplify, augment, and assist in our evolution as human beings. They also serve as an extension of our human experience. Now, the very cornerstone of that human experience is knowledge, it's intellectual curiosity, and it's information discovery. At Drop, we're a team of designers, engineers, and just flat-out nerds who are obsessed with the way that people will discover and interact with the world. We've built one of the first VR titles that allows people to have an immersive internet searching and browsing experience inside of their HTC Vive. Some of the goals that we set out to reach by using virtual reality, including, building products that help the world connect in a more meaningful and authentic way. We think that virtual reality has the potential to kind of bring back that humanistic touch that technology has, in our opinion, sort of lost over the past 10 years with mobile.
One of the good things about Drop is being able to really isolate myself while doing research, going into that space where it's calm, collected, and I can make the environment what I want and really, truly customize the research experience to my own needs.
You see, the browser has always been the gateway to information discovery. If I asked any of you to open your MacBooks right now, that will probably be the very first application I saw. And the reason is because the browser has always been the portal to increasing our knowledge and satisfying our intellectual curiosity. So we simply started asking ourselves at Drop, as we kind of move into this post-smartphone world, how will we navigate the immersive web? Hence, we created Drop. Drop very simply provides an immersive internet searching and browsing experience designed for many of your favorite post-smartphone devices. Now, the first thing I always get asked is, Russ, what the heck is the immersive web? Now, I always say that the immersive web exists in three components today. You have your existing 2D web content. You have another component called WebXR, which is typically developer-generated VR content. And the third piece is limited input mechanisms. So things such as audio, point and click with the keyboard inside the environment, and sometimes even gesture technology. And today, there are people like Brad who spend about 15 hours to 20 hours a week in their post-smartphone device, such as their HTC Vive or Oculus Go. And for folks like Brad, he's always needed a place where he can figure out what's happening in the world when he's locked into his headset, but also maintain his productivity. Of course, we aren't the only ones thinking about the immersive web right now. You have another great company here in San Francisco called SuperMedium, who's developed a virtual reality browser. You have two of the world's legendary technology companies, Mozilla and Google. Mozilla has Firefox Reality for their users, as well as Google Chrome has shipped out a VR browser for their Daydream customers as well. And of course, Oculus would need to exist in this space, and Oculus has a browser designed for their users as well. If you recall the very first thing I said when I got on stage today, it was, at Drop, our role is to completely reimagine the way that people will interact with information in the post-smartphone world. And that is the very secret sauce and background of everyone who works at our team. Human-computer interaction. If you look here, we created something called Thematic Cubes. The idea behind the Thematic Cubes was we wanted to give our users a way to create these custom 3D objects that could actually live in virtual and augmented worlds. Places that could be assigned responsibilities such as news, music, and even sports. So you'll watch Brad here as he looks for the latest news on Childish Gambino, pull down his thematic cube. Now, the thematic cube idea was actually designed by one of our engineers whose background includes HCI. And one of the reasons he brought it to us was deeply rooted in the idea that people typically, if any of us had on a HoloLens or Magic Leap or some other type of post-smartphone device, people typically remember where they leave items. Most of us can quickly say, oh, I left my car keys by the window. And if we're talking about the immersive web and information discovery and productivity, and if we're moving into a world where these devices will be the centerpiece for how we interact with the world, we thought it would be interesting to have these thematic cubes laid out so that when they walk into their office, when they walk into their place of education, or if they're just simply at home, they can remember where all their information is without 1,000 tabs everywhere on their computer device. That's today. That's virtual reality, augmented reality today. Where are we going tomorrow? And that's where I tend to live. I always joke and say most of our work is 10 to 12 years out. So when we think about the immersive web, probably 10, 12 years from now, and even there's some research happening now, there are 3 areas that we get very excited about at Drop. The first is this idea of what we refer to as 3D object interactivity. You kind of got a glimpse of it with our thematic cubes. But we also think it could even go as far as something as people being able to take existing 2D content and pull 3D objects out of it. The next is visual annotation. As humans, we have a penchant for kind of leaving messages behind so that people can actually remember what we did or what we said. And we think we believe that thanks to the next advancements in computer vision, the AR cloud, that people will be able to have that sort of shared local experience of leaving annotations all over the web so that when we walk out here on Tasman Drive, we can always remember, oh, that's where the Levi Stadium is. And the third piece is what we refer to as multimodal interaction. We believe that eventually interface design will become so sophisticated that you won't know if it's real or if it's augmented. We believe that we'll have the potential to have a full sensory experience with our interaction of our information. Now, we're a research team. We can spend a lot of time in R&D. We can spend a lot of time thinking about the immersive web. We can spend a lot of time thinking about, well, where do we simply go from here? One of our investors, he always tells me, Russ, what's the second and third act for Drop? I know what the third act is. If you recall one of the very first slides, you probably recognize the chameleon beast from Black Panther. And our third act has always been to eventually design some type of wearable, some type of post-smartphone device that will completely replace the iPhone. But yeah, that's later down the line. But what do you do between the immersive web today and get into that design wearable? Many of us in here, the reason that we're on this stage or sit in this audience is because we fell in love with things like Ready Player One. We fell in love with the Star Treks of the world and the Jetsons. Because that sort of cultural contribution, that sort of knowledge that we saw there, lended to our sci-fi dreams. And something that we quickly saw was, what if we actually did something similar? What if we gave researchers the opportunity to continue to do leading research, but we also had the opportunity to inspire the next generation of creators who will eventually stand on this stage? So I'd like to introduce you to this concept main character. Her name is Aria. Aria is a young girl in the year of 2045, and she lives in a world where there's political turmoil, the environment is completely damaged thanks to climate change, and a whole technocratic government has taken place here in the US. And because of that, the United States government has created a space colony called USX, where they're now taking all of the particular citizens of the United States to the space colony. And Aurea, because she's a teenage genius, she's created a piece of technology that will allow her to actually see what's actually happening in this world. We call this an interactive media venture. It's the idea that our work at Drop spans all new media forms. It allows us to continue to do new research and development around computer vision and human-computer interaction modalities. More importantly, it allows us to tell the story of the future, a story so that people who look like me, people who believe that everyone doesn't need the same sort of homogeneous background, can actually believe and build the sci-fi future that we all kind of came here for. And the third is the cultural value. One of my favorite quotes by Nina Simone, she says, "An artist's duty at all times is to reflect the times." And I think it's our job today as technologists to truly reflect and figure out what's happening in our world and how our technology will eventually live in the future. And we have the opportunity to tell that story through Ward X9, the new animated series. Now, we couldn't do this alone. And I've been extremely lucky to work with a talented team of investors who, Russ, stretch the imagination of what's possible. Forget about counter the traditional wisdom that you have been told and figure out the best way to imagine a new future for a new generation of creators. We've been lucky to have the HTCs of the world, Macro, a leading film and production company in Los Angeles, to actually help us make this vision possible. Now, I could probably spend another 30 minutes up here, but I'm sure you probably have a lot of questions. And right now, not only are we able to work with those type of investors, we kind of want to open the floor, not only for questions, but for people who believe in a new type of future, a future that we've been no longer tied to, but a future that we can all kind of contribute to. So if you're interested, if you're a software engineer with a computer vision background, if you're a 3D animator, if you're a technical artist, and you want to produce work that will actually matter, feel free to find me afterwards. But in the meantime, I'll answer some of your questions. The first question is Drop now available on the Vive? Yes, Drop is available on the HTC Vive, Oculus Rift, and the Windows Mixed Reality systems. Will Drop be available on any AR platforms? At the moment, we've actually thought about working on a proof of concept browser for the Magic Leap 1. And the reason for that is because Magic Leap has a browser called the Hilo that is still prototype, but we actually think that our browser could actually be a lot more functional and experiential on our device. So at some point in our roadmap, we probably will look into it. Is 360 and stereo 3D content viewable through the Drop platform? Yes, it is. You weren't able to see it through some of the videos I shared a few minutes ago, but yes, you can look at YouTube 360 videos. You can listen to have a full sort of spatial 3D spatial content as well. There are no more questions. Oh, no more questions. Oh, great, there are no more questions. So, something I want to think about right now is, oh, there's another one. Powerful vision. Any advice for young devs? I think one of the biggest mistakes that we made as technologists over the past 10 years with mobile is that we completely disregarded the consideration for humanity. And my challenge to young developers, whether they're for hardcore software engineers or designers, is to kind of bring back that artistic and humanistic touch to your products. Remember to kind of put someone at the very center of what you're building. Because if we fundamentally think about it, technology is truly about art and craft. It's about you using your art to craft an experience for a human. So that would be my advice for any young devs. Does Drop have support for personal assistants? Today, Drop does not have support for personal assistants. Any more questions coming up? Okay. So I'm kind of going to end on this note of when we think about the immersive web, when we think about the role that sort of new frontier technology has played in our lives. My challenge to everyone, truly, and this is something, like I said, we feel very passionate about at Drop, and that's why we want to move on to this next venture, this next phase of our venture of creating an animated series that completely reimagines the future, is put the people at the center of your product, and more questions are coming in as I'm ending. Are you working with integrating AI and ML into the browser? Yes, so all of our technology, our browser, our tech stack actually includes some machine learning techniques that are proprietary as well. Was working with investors a challenge? I think what you're asking was maybe fundraising a challenge. When we were fundraising for our seed round, I spoke to 112 investors. 104 said no. And albeit, I mean, we all know that there are some sort of unconscious biases that exist between fundraising for people of color in this community. And I think that was the largest challenge. Working with our investors today, they have been some of the largest supporters of our vision at Drop and have committed to this long journey with us. There we go. Thank you so much. I'm Russell Ladson, the CEO of Drop.